I never thought a single laugh could destroy a marriage, but there I was, standing in our bedroom on that cold Tuesday night, watching my husband's world crumble because of my cruel mouth. "Sarah, I've missed this," David whispered, reaching for me after weeks of distance between us. "I've missed us." The heating was on, but the room felt freezing. When he undressed, something twisted inside me snapped. I looked at him and laughed, not a gentle giggle, but a sharp, cutting sound that sliced through the silence. "God, David," I said without thinking, "Marcus was so much bigger than you. I never realized how much I missed that." The words hung in the air like poison gas. I watched my husband's face crumble in real time, his confidence shattering into a million pieces. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, naked and vulnerable, looking at me like I had just stabbed him in the heart. Maybe I had. "David, don't." His voice was barely a whisper. He grabbed his clothes and walked out. "I'm Sarah, 29, a marketing manager who just destroyed her 3-year marriage to the gentlest man I've ever known. David's 31, an accountant who's always been insecure about his body. And Marcus? Marcus was my ex from college, confident, physically imposing, and emotionally unavailable." Lisa had warned me about this. "Stop comparing," she'd said months ago. "It's not fair to David." I should have listened. David didn't come to bed that night. I found him the next morning sleeping on the couch, still fully clothed, his face puffy from crying. "David, please, I didn't mean it," I whispered, reaching for his hand. He pulled away like my touch burned him. "Yes, you did. You meant every word." "No, I was just what, Sarah? Just thinking about your ex while you were with your husband?" The accusation hit like a slap. Because he was right. I had been too, hinking about Marcus, about his engagement photos flooding my social media, about his perfect life with his model fiancé while I was stuck in suburban monotony. "I'm sorry," I choked out. "Sorry doesn't fix this." David's voice was hollow. "Every time you look at me now, I'll wonder if you're thinking about him. Every time we're intimate, I'll hear that laugh." My phone rang. David's mother. "Hi, Patricia." "Sarah, is everything all right? David sounded so upset when I called him last night." I looked at David, who was staring at the ceiling. "We're just going through a rough patch." "Well, marriage takes work, dear. Don't give up on each other." If only she knew. At work, Jake from accounting cornered me by the coffee machine. "You look terrible. Everything okay at home?" "Fine," I lied, but my hands were shaking as I poured my coffee. My phone buzzed. A text from David's sister Emily. "David won't return my calls. What's going on?" I stared at the message, realizing how far the damage had spread. My moment of cruelty hadn't just wounded David, it had sent shockwaves through his entire support system. I tried everything to make it right. I bought David's favorite Thai food, left love notes in his lunch, even Googled couples therapists. "David, please, let's get help. We can work through this." He was standing at the kitchen sink, washing the same plate for the 3rd time. "Some things can't be unsaid, Sarah. Every time you look at me now, I'll wonder if you're thinking about him." "I'm not! I swear I'm not!" "But you were that night, and probably other nights too." I was desperate, so I did something I swore I'd never do. I called Marcus. "Sarah, this is unexpected," he said, and I could hear the smirk in his voice. "Marcus, I need you to stop posting so much on social media." He laughed, the same cruel laugh I had given David. "What? Why would I do that?" Because it's affecting my marriage." "That's not my problem, sweetheart. Maybe you married the wrong guy." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, realizing Marcus was exactly the same selfish person he'd always been. I'd been carrying around an idealized version of him that never existed. "Sarah?" Dr. Williams, the therapist I'd started seeing alone since David refused couples counseling, leaned forward. "What are you thinking about?" "That I destroyed my marriage over a fantasy. Tell me about that fantasy. At the grocery store, Tom, David's best friend, blocked my path in the cereal aisle. How could you do this to him? Tom's face was red with anger. I've never seen him so broken. Tom, please, I'm trying to fix it. Some things can't be fixed, Sarah. Rachel, Tom's girlfriend, appeared beside him. I wanted to help, but what you said, that cuts deep. I know I messed up. Messed up? Tom scoffed. You humiliated him in the most intimate moment possible. That's not a mess up. That's cruelty. 3 weeks after that terrible night, I came home to find David sitting at our kitchen table with a stack of papers in front of him. My heart stopped when I saw the letterhead. Peterson Associates, Family Law. David, no, I whispered. He was already sliding the divorce papers across the table toward me. I've thought about this for weeks, Sarah. I can't get past what you said. Please don't do this. We can go to therapy. Every time I look in the mirror, I hear your laugh. Every time we're intimate, I'll wonder if you're thinking about him. I can't live like that. His voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. I deserve someone who chooses me completely, someone who doesn't keep a scorecard of their exes in their head. David, please. Sign them, Sarah. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. The next day, David's father, Robert, came to collect some of David's belongings. Robert had always been warm with me, calling me his bonus daughter. Now he looked right through me. I never thought you were capable of such cruelty, Sarah. Robert, my son is sleeping in his childhood bedroom, crying himself to sleep, at 31 years old. My mother called that evening after David told his parents about the divorce. Sarah Elizabeth, what did you do? I told her everything. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. How could you be so thoughtless, so cruel? I don't know, Mom. I don't know. Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor, knocked on my door later that week. I saw David loading his car, she said softly. I've never seen such sadness in a young man's eyes. What happened, dear? I signed the papers with shaking hands, each signature feeling like another nail in my marriage's coffin. Living alone in our house felt like haunting a museum of my failed marriage. David's coffee cup still sat in the sink. His books remained on the nightstand. His side of the mattress still bore the indent of his body. I threw myself into work, but my performance suffered catastrophically. After I botched a major presentation to our biggest client, my boss Margaret called me into her office. Sarah, I don't know what's going on in your personal life, but you need to get it together or take some time off. I'm sorry, Margaret. I'll do better. This isn't like you. What's happening? I couldn't tell her that I was falling apart because I'd destroyed my marriage with a moment of inexcusable cruelty. Meanwhile, Marcus was everywhere on social media. His engagement photos with Sophia were perfect, both of them looking like they belonged in a magazine spread. I found myself obsessing over their relationship, comparing it to what I'd lost with David. But the more I watched, the more I noticed cracks. Sophia's smiles seemed forced. Marcus's eyes wandered in photos with other women. The expensive gifts looked more like apologies than romantic gestures. My college friend Anna called with gossip. Did you see Marcus's latest post? Sophia looked uncomfortable at that charity gala. Anna, I can't keep talking about him. Why not? You used to love hearing about... Oh no, Sarah. Please tell me you didn't compare David to Marcus. My gym buddy Carlos mentioned seeing Marcus at bars downtown. Dude was wearing an engagement ring, but hitting on everything that moved. I realized that the man I'd destroyed my marriage over was exactly the same unfaithful person he'd always been. Kevin, my new neighbor across the street, noticed me crying on my porch one evening. Hey, you okay? I'm Kevin, by the way. Just moved in. Sarah, and no, I'm really not okay. Divorce? Oh, did you know? Takes one to know one. Want to talk about it? Kevin introduced me to his sister Janet, who ran a divorce support group. First meetings tomorrow night. Might help to know you're not alone. In Dr. Williams' office, I finally broke down completely. I held on to this fantasy version of Marcus while I was married to David. I used him as an escape from doing the real work required in marriage. That's a significant insight, Sarah. What do you think that fantasy represented? Driving past David's new apartment last week, I saw him through the window. He looked thin and sad, reading alone on his couch. The sight broke my heart and made me realize the full extent of the damage I'd caused to the gentlest soul I'd ever known. 2 months after our divorce was finalized, Anna called with news that made my stomach turn. "Sarah, you're not going to believe this. Marcus got caught cheating on Sophia." "What?" "She found texts on his phone, really explicit ones with some coworker. She's completely devastated." I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction, followed immediately by disgust at myself for finding pleasure in someone else's pain. "There's more," Anna continued. "Sophia's dad owns the company where Marcus works. Owned. He fired Marcus the same day Sophia found the texts. Marcus went from having a 6-figure salary and a beautiful fiancée to being unemployed and single in 48 hours. A few days later, Beth, Marcus's former coworker, reached out to me. "Sarah, I felt you should know. Marcus has been bragging about his conquests, including talking about you. He told several women that his devoted ex Sarah never got over him, and that you still compared other men to him." I felt sick. "He said that?" "He's been using your name to manipulate women, making them jealous by talking about how you pined for him even after marriage. Marcus had been feeding off my obsession with him, probably knowing I was still comparing David to him." At Janet's support group, I met Michael, whose wife left after he criticized her post-pregnancy weight gain. "I called her fat during an argument," he said, his voice breaking. "She never forgave me." There was Linda, who lost her husband after an emotional affair. I thought it was harmless texting. It wasn't. Hearing their stories helped me understand that while my actions were inexcusable, I wasn't uniquely evil, just human and deeply flawed. Kevin mentioned seeing David with a woman at a restaurant downtown. She seemed really nice. They looked happy. The news hit me like a physical blow, but it also brought strange relief. David deserved happiness, even if it wasn't with me. "You're processing complex emotions," Dr. Williams observed. "Your pain at David moving on is natural, but your relief at his happiness shows real growth. I just want him to be happy, even if it means I never get a chance to make things right." What does making things right mean to you now? Learning to live with what I've done, making sure I never hurt someone like that again. Marcus showed up at my office on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I hadn't seen him in person since college, and he looked terrible. His usually perfect hair was messy, dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his expensive clothes looked wrinkled and slept in. "Sarah, we need to talk," he said, barging past Jenny, my assistant. "You can't just show up here, Marcus. I'm at work." "Please, just 5 minutes." He looked desperate, pathetic even. Sophia hadn't just left him. She'd convinced her father to blacklist him from their entire industry network. Word about his cheating had spread through our old college circles like wildfire. "You know me better than anyone," he pleaded. "Maybe we could try again. We had something special." I stared at this man I'd once idealized, seeing him clearly for the first time. He wasn't the confident, successful person I'd built up in my mind. He was a selfish, manipulative user who only came crawling back when he had nowhere else to turn. "Marcus, you destroyed my marriage. I compared my husband to a fantasy version of you that never actually existed. The real you is standing here right now, and I can see exactly why Sophia left." His face twisted with anger. "Your husband was a loser, Sarah. You knew it then, and you know it now. That's why you called out my name during—" I slapped him before he could finish that lie. "Get out. Don't ever contact me again." "Sarah, what's—" Jenny had appeared in the doorway. "Call security," I said calmly. "Mr. Williams is leaving." Security escorted Marcus from the building while he shouted threats about ruining my reputation. Jenny watched the whole thing with wide eyes. "I'm proud of how you handled that," she said afterward. Margaret appeared at my office door moments later. "What was that about?" For the first time, I told her everything. About my divorce, about Marcus, about why my work had been suffering. Her reaction surprised me. "Take a few days off," she said gently. "Process all of this. Your job will be here when you get back." That evening, I called David for the first time since the divorce. I didn't expect him to answer, but he did. "Sarah? I need to tell you something." I explained about Marcus showing up, about learning who he really was, about understanding that I'd been living in a fantasy. David listened quietly. When I finished, he said, "Thank you for telling me. I hope you find peace, Sarah." His kindness broke my heart all over again. 6 months after my divorce, I ran into David at our old grocery store. He looked healthier, happier, and he wasn't alone. The woman with him was beautiful in a natural way, curly hair, kind eyes, and a genuine smile that lit up her whole face. When she laughed at something David said, I saw him light up in a way I hadn't seen in years. "Sarah," David said when he noticed me. There was no anger in his voice, just acknowledgement. "Hi, David." My heart was pounding. "This is Amanda." Amanda extended her hand warmly. "It's nice to meet you, Sarah." She knew who I was, I could tell, but she didn't treat me like the villain in David's story. "Amanda's a teacher," David said. "We met through Tom and Rachel." "How long have you been together?" I asked, surprised by my own calm. 3 months, Amanda replied. "David's told me a lot about you." I wondered what exactly he'd shared, but her kindness suggested he'd been more generous than I deserved. "We should get going," David said. "The ice cream's melting." As they prepared to leave, David turned back to me. "I hope you're doing well, Sarah. I really do." Watching them walk away together, David's hand gently on Amanda's back, I felt something I hadn't expected. Genuine happiness for him. He deserved someone who would never make him feel inadequate, someone who would build him up instead of tearing him down. Claire, my friend from Janet's support group, called later that evening. "How are you feeling about seeing David with someone new?" "Surprisingly okay. Happy for him, even." "That's growth, Sarah. Real growth." Dr. Williams agreed when I told her about the encounter. "Your lack of jealousy shows significant healing. You're learning to love David enough to want his happiness, even without you." At home alone that night, the silence didn't feel oppressive for the first time in months. I was learning to enjoy my own company, to build a life that didn't require someone else to complete it. I'd started volunteering at a local women's shelter, helping other women rebuild their lives after traumatic relationships. My mother Helen visited that weekend. "You look better," she said, studying my face. "Lighter, somehow." "I'm working on myself, Mom. Really working." "I'm proud of you, Sarah. For the first time since this all happened, I'm genuinely proud of the woman you're becoming." A year after my divorce, I'd learned that healing isn't linear. Some days I felt strong and confident about my future. Others, I was still processing the magnitude of what I'd lost through my own actions. "You sought validation through comparison," Dr. Williams explained during one of our sessions. "Your cruelty toward David stemmed from deep insecurities about choosing stability over excitement." "I thought Marcus represented passion," I admitted. "But really, I was just addicted to drama and chaos. David's quiet strength felt boring because you mistook volatility for love." Through the shelter work, I met Dr. Sarah Martinez. We joked about sharing the same first name. She helped me understand how childhood experiences had shaped my adult relationship patterns. "Your parents had a volatile marriage," she pointed out. "You learned to associate emotional turbulence with romance. So David's consistency felt wrong? It felt unfamiliar. Your brain interpreted stability as disconnection." At the shelter, I met Rosa, a domestic violence survivor rebuilding her life with incredible courage. "I stayed for 15 years, she told me during our counseling session, because the good moments felt so intense after the bad ones. I'm sorry you went through that." "Everyone carries invisible battles, Mija. The key is learning from them." Anna called with updates about Marcus. "He's moved back in with his parents, working retail now." Instead of satisfaction, I felt sorry for him. I hope he gets help. "You've really changed, Sarah." Kevin had become a good friend, teaching me that divorce doesn't mean failure. Sometimes it means choosing growth over comfort. I spent 2 years bitter after my divorce, he told me over coffee. Wasted time I'll never get back. What changed? I realized I had to become someone I could live with, someone I could respect. Janet's support group had become central to my weekly routine. I'd even started co-facilitating sessions for newly divorced people. My work performance had improved dramatically. Margaret promoted me to senior marketing director, saying I'd become more focused and empathetic. I bought my own house, smaller than the one I'd shared with David, but entirely mine. At the farmer's market, I ran into Patricia, David's mother. She was polite but distant. "How are you, Sarah?" "I'm well, Patricia. How's David?" "Happy. He and Amanda are engaged." I found myself genuinely smiling. That's wonderful news. He deserves happiness. Patricia's expression softened slightly. Yes, he does. 2 years after that terrible night when I destroyed my marriage with cruel laughter, I can finally tell this story without drowning in shame. I still carry regret, I always will, but I've learned to carry it as a teacher rather than a punishment. David and Amanda married last spring in a small ceremony. Anna showed me the photos that circulated through our old friend group. David looked radiant, truly happy in a way that reminded me why I'd fallen in love with him in the first place. Amanda was glowing, and you could see the love between them in every image. The way she looked at him, the way he held her hand, the pure joy on both their faces. I sent them a card of Turward, not to the wedding venue, but to their home. I simply wrote, "Wishing you both a lifetime of happiness. You deserve each other in the most beautiful way. S." I never heard back, and I didn't expect to. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. But forgiveness doesn't always require rebuilding. Sometimes it just requires letting go. "You've found peace with the consequences," Dr. Williams observed during one of our final regular sessions. That's significant growth. I understand now that some mistakes can never be undone, but they can be transformed into wisdom. I'm in a relationship now with James, a fellow volunteer at the shelter. We met 6 months ago, and for the first time in my life, I'm building something based on who I actually am, rather than who I think I should be. "Tell me about your ex-wife," I said early in our relationship. "She's a good person. We just grew apart," James replied. "No villains in our story, just 2 people who wanted different things. My ex-husband is a good person too. I was the one who destroyed us. That takes courage to admit." James is a social worker with a teenage daughter named Mia. Our relationship is built on honesty, communication, and the mutual understanding that we're both works in progress. "I like Sarah," Mia told James after we'd been dating for 3 months. "She doesn't try to be my mom, she just tries to be my friend." Last week I drove past my old house with David. A young family lives there now. I can see children's toys in the yard and holiday decorations in the windows. I don't feel sadness anymore when I see it, just gratitude for the lessons learned and hope for the future. Some mistakes can never be undone, I told my support group during my final session as a participant before transitioning to co-facilitator. But they can be transformed into wisdom if we're brave enough to face them honestly. Michael, the man who'd lost his wife after criticizing her weight, raised his hand. "How do you live with the regret?" "You carry it differently, not as a burden, but as a reminder, a teacher. You let it make you kinder, not bitter." "Do you ever stop missing what you lost?" "No, but you learn to be grateful for what it taught you, and you learn to build something better with that knowledge." I understand now that my cruel laughter that night wasn't really about David or Marcus. It was about my own fear of intimacy, my inability to sit with contentment without sabotaging it. David deserved better than what I gave him. Amanda gives him that. And maybe, just maybe, I'm finally becoming someone who could give that kind of love too. The story ends here, but the growth continues. Every day, I choose to be better than the woman who laughed at her husband's vulnerability. Every day, I choose wisdom over ego, kindness over cruelty, growth over stagnation. Some stories don't have happy endings, but they can have meaningful ones. And sometimes that's enough.